Well, hi everyone. I just wanted to say hello and we'll get started in just a couple minutes. My hair is getting long, huh? Yeah, I'm letting it grow. Hi. Good to see everybody. I look different, yeah. We're just having a little trouble getting Ruth's camera to come on. So as soon as we get her camera turned on, we should be able to get started. Any luck yet, Ruth?
It's hiding underneath the rename button. Let's see.
If you go down to the lower left-hand area, maybe you'll see something there on the big screen.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Let me see. I can see it, but it will not let me click on it. So maybe we should leave me faceless.
Oh.
Get started.
All right. Well, I guess we should go ahead and get started. And Ruth is going to kick us off as getting us through an introduction here. So welcome, everyone, and take it away, Ruth, whenever you're ready.
All right. Well, this is the second in our series of 4 monthly webinars that are covering the basics of human design. Today, we will be talking about authority. And I see many of you have already seen how to use the Q&A panel. And if questions come up, feel free to ask them in the Q&A area. And we'll be answering questions as time permits at the end of the webinar. So we're going to start with the origin of human design and a brief overview of what it is for those of you who are brand new to human design. And Lynette?
Yeah, it says it's waiting for you to control your screen, so you should be able to navigate it. There you go.
Yeah. Yay! Thank you. Whoa, and now it's catching up with me. Human design is a synthesis. In 1987, an astronomical event happened all over the planet, and it was the death of a star, supernova 1987A. And in Ibiza, Spain, in January of 1987, the founder and messenger of human design, Ra Uru Hu, had what he called an encounter with the voice for 8 days. And he was given a vast range of knowledge, which included the human design system, a system of self-knowledge. Human design is a synthesis of ancient wisdom like astrology, the Hindu chakra system, the Kabbalah, tree of life, and the Chinese I Ching, the book of changes. And along with these ancient wisdoms, we have modern science. And we're waiting for the internet to catch up and move the next screen, but the modern sciences are genetics, the science of neutrinos, and physics. Neutrinos are the smallest known particle to man that has mass. And every second of every day, millions of neutrinos pass through the sun, the planets, through the earth, and through us. Is Mercury in retrograde? Lynette, are you? There we go. And here we are, catching up with me.
Ruth, I'm going to do the slides for you. So just tell me when you want it to go next.
Thank you. Thank you. Next slide. So our DNA has 64 codons, and each codon has 6 groups of amino acids. And this is where ancient wisdom meets modern science. The I Ching, the ancient Chinese book of changes, has 64 hexagrams, and each of those hexagrams has 6 lines. And you can see the correlation. Next slide, Lynda. And here is the beautiful human design mandala. And this helps us put everything together in a beautiful graphical representation. The outer ring are the hexagrams of the I Ching. The next ring in the beautiful colored ring with the numbers, those are the corresponding gates of the body graph to the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching. The next ring in, many of you will probably recognize as the astrological wheel. And this aligns the planetary positions with the hexagrams of the I Ching. And inside, you'll see what we call the body graph, the graphical representation of a body with the geometric shapes. There are 9 geometric shapes in the body graph, and we call those centers. There are 9 centers. And you can see the gates represented in the centers. There are 64 gates. The channels that connect those centers are a evolution or a synthesis of the Kabbalah or tree of life. And when we pull the body graph out, this is what you see when you get your human design chart. This happens to be my human design. I'm a 5-1 generator with sacral authority. There are 26 activations, and you'll see them 13 in black on the right and 13 in red on the left. The red are unconscious activations. These are imprints that happen approximately 3 months before your birth, or 88 degrees of solar arc. And we have 13 conscious activations, and these are imprints that happen when we're born or when we separate from our mother's body. Next, please, Lynda. So we have design or unconscious activations noted in red, and personality or conscious activations noted in black. And we pull it all together in the center to get the quantum. We are a forced marriage of unconscious activations and conscious activations. And when you put it all together, that is your human design. Next, please. Each of us is so very unique. Each gate is defined by one of 6 lines, one of 6 colors, one of 6 tones, one of 5 bases. There are 1,080 variations of the same gate. And in addition to that, the gate can be conscious or unconscious. It can be in a defined, undefined, or open center. And that changes the way that that gate expresses in your individual design. So very unique. Next, please. So Lynda, please take it away. Lynda is going to take us through what is authority, the topic of today's webinar.
Thanks, Ruth. And that was great introduction to some of the real basic things of human design, what pulls it together. What is authority? So authority is our navigation tool. It's one of the main reasons that human design is a valuable tool to us. Last time we talked about type and strategy. Knowing your type and your strategy helps you also to navigate, but authority helps us make decisions. Now, decisions are one of the most important things that we do in our life on a day-to-day basis. I mean, think about it for a minute. The decision to turn this way or to turn that way or to marry that person or have that child or to go to that event or to go do this or do that or move house or take a vacation here or there or whatever. As we know, as we make decisions and we go out into the world, we encounter people, places, things that have the potential to transform our life. So when you look at the definitive book of human design on the cover, you see a compass. And the compass really says so much about what human design is and what it can do for us. One of the pieces of feedback we got last time we did strategy and authority was, or type and strategy was, that we needed to share what the purpose of human design is, not just its origins, which is also important, but why do we care? What's the point? Why should I get a reading? Why should I study this? Why should I get involved in this? And type, strategy, and authority are really the main reasons for doing that, because it aligns us to our trajectory in life, to our geometry. It sets us up to be in the place that we need to be in based on our strategy, authority, right? It aligns us to our place. When we're in the right place, then we meet the right people, then we have the right opportunities. For whatever reason, I'm not talking specifically about anything in general, but opportunities to meet the next level of your life, to, find the house that you want, or to discover a terrific restaurant, or run into that person that's going to say something to make a big difference in your life. So type, strategy, and authority, that's why these are the foundations of human design. Life is all about decisions. If you think back on the decisions that you made in your life, and the ones that maybe you might classify as wrong, think about how you came about that decision. And going back to authority, it brings the decision down into your body, because basically in human design, we're letting go of the mind and we're turning over our authority to our body consciousness, which already knows how to survive in this world. It speaks to us. And so what we teach when we talk about authority is how is my body supposed to speak to me? How is it informing me what is a good decision or correct decision? You can even take the word good and bad out of it, because there's no morality here, there's no judgment here. It really is just what's a correct decision. I mean, maybe it's correct for me to marry the wrong guy, because I need to marry him to find out what I don't want, and then I marry the right guy next time. So maybe that decision was correct. So we don't know. We don't judge these things. All we do is turn over our, turn over our authority to our body consciousness. And, the body has different centers in it, as you saw in Ruth's presentation, 9 different centers. So how do those centers operate? How is our mind informed? How is our body informed? And so that's really what we want to talk about. it's the cornerstone of human design is authority, the cornerstone. If you don't get anything else out of human design, this is what you need to take away from it. And this is what we talk about. We talk about the experiment of human design, that you can only really know what it means to live in that type with that strategy and that authority through your own experiment of, having the experience of making a correct decision or making a decision that's not so correct. People come to me and say, should I take this class, or should I do this, or should I do that? And I said, what does your authority say? Whatever is correct for you. And that will align you to the proper way in which you need to move through the world. We may not always like the decisions others make through their authority, because they might go counter to what our mind thinks that they should do, or what their mind thinks that they should do. But if it's correct, it's correct. And it's very freeing. It's incredibly freeing. So what I often tell people that come to human design in the beginning is, let go of what your mind thinks your life is supposed to look like, and enter into the experiment of your design. So here's some points that you can take away. Inner authority is your decision-making tool. So you've always had what it takes to make the correct decisions for your life. Not always have you known how to use it. That's why sometimes we call human design the user manual for your life, because it really helps you to understand what it means to be in this body on this planet. Human design teaches you how to live by your own authority. It reveals how to make decisions for you that are correct for you. What a gift that is. And it's always been there for you. It's just, I was doing my decisions completely opposite. I have an open spleen and a defined solar plexus. I was being spontaneous when that's not really how I was designed to make decisions. So you've most likely been conditioned to look for approval and authority outside of yourself, and to make decisions from your mind. That reminds me, we're living in really crazy times right now. Nobody can deny that. And the structures that have been in place for a very long time are beginning to simply sort of disintegrate, fall apart. And we were conditioned to look to outer authorities to make our decisions. What does my mother say? What does my father say? What does my friend say? What does the priest say, etc. But really, what we're living in times now where we have to become our own authority. It doesn't work any other way. This is how the totality has evolved to this place where if we're out of step with how to make decisions, we will suffer the consequences. And human design is here to teach us how to be in step with the totality. So your strong and gifted mind tries to be the authority in your life. Most of us have to be taught to think it through. Your mind will use and think anything to maintain its control over your life. Make an ally of your mind by honoring your authority and deepening your understanding for your type strategy. This is really a key piece. If you can make your mind an ally, it'll start to cooperate with you. Because in the beginning of your experiment, your mind wants to fight your type strategy authority, because it wants to operate like it's been conditioned to operate its entire life. So there's a struggle that goes on between the mind and what it thinks it should have, and what your body consciousness knows is correct for you. But over time, and through the understanding through human design, your mind can actually become an ally. And now my mind says to me more than the other, all right, it's time to wait through your emotional wave. It's time to wait. Did you respond? Are you making a mental decision? So my mind is checking on me, to see if I'm really doing what, walking my talk. So making an ally of your mind is something to look forward to if you're just getting into the beginning of this. Human design shows you how to free your mind to observe your life as a relaxed, reflective passenger, able to enjoy its ride and fulfill its role as an outer authority for others. So that's one point that's very interesting is that when we do become more of a relaxed, reflective passenger, we take in from life what's correct for us instead of all this crazy chaos that really may not belong to us. And the more sort of clean energy that you operate with in your body by honoring it, the more you can be helpful to other people through having a clear outer authority, meaning that, you know, right now I'm sharing with you my outer authority, what I have learned over my years of being involved in human design and being involved in my own experiment with human design. I have learned some things. I'm sharing that. So I'm being an outer authority. Now, you listen to your inner authority, and then you take what works for you that I'm saying, and you discard the rest. I am not, you know, I don't know all the answers. I just share with you. So that's what it's really about. It's we get to a place where we can commune with each other, we can share with each other, and with our sort of clean energy, because we've gone through this deconditioning process as we have honored our type, strategy, authority. So that's what outer authority means in terms of human design. Let's see, sometimes these slides don't want to cooperate with me. There we go. Is that the right one? Yeah, okay. So the hierarchy of authority. So when we're looking at a body graph, this is just kind of helpful when you're looking at a body graph, and you see a solar plexus colored in the body graph. You know that this person's authority is their solar plexus. If they have no solar plexus colored in, but they do have a sacral colored in, that red center right above the root, then you know the sacral is their authority. If they don't have solar plexus, don't have sacral colored in, but they have the spleen colored in, then you know the spleen is their authority. And on down the line, no solar plexus, no sacral, no spleen, but heart, then the heart is their authority. No solar plexus, no sacral, no spleen, no heart, then the G is their authority. And none of those above, then you're looking at somebody who has outer authority, and we'll explain what outer authority means versus inner authority. But basically, outer authority is about listening to the environment to guide you, and or listening to the moon, the lunar transit, to guide you, to help you with your decisions. And we're going to talk about each one of these as we go through. And here, this is something that's off of the Jovian Archive website. They have some good statistics. And so it just gives you a perspective. You know, people, 46% of the planet have solar plexus authority. 32.9 have sacral, 10.82 have splenic, 0.78 are ego manifested, 2.82 are self-projected authorities, 0.48 are ego projected authorities, and then we have none, where the body graph is completely empty. Those are reflectors, and that's just under 4% of the population. So, you know, interesting statistics to look at, but you just, you know, just know this: the mind is never the authority, whether it is defined or undefined. The mind will try to be the authority in life because of the conditioning. The mind is a spokesperson for the open centers, which is where we take in that conditioning and that distortion. And it also second guesses our inner authority. So when you are presented with a decision and you're turning your decisions over to your inner authority, just take a moment and watch the dynamic that goes on within your mind versus body. So for me, I would watch my mind want to jump in and say yes, or jump in and say no. And my solar plexus, I'm not giving my solar plexus time. And that's what it's all about for me. It's giving my solar plexus time. So you can't turn off the mind, but you can watch the interaction between the mind and centers. And what this does, it does so many things, but it puts you in the experiment of getting in touch with your strategy and authority. It puts you in that experiment. It also brings you into a great level of awareness where you're really getting aware of what's going on in your body, in your mind, and just looking at the whole thing and really just becoming aware. So there's a real internal reflection that happens when you're in this process of understanding your strategy and authority. So the first one to talk about, and then I'm going to turn this over, is the solar plexus, the emotional authority. So here's where it's located on the body graph. So when you see this, like I said, they will have solar plexus. Some people call it emotional authority. So what does that mean? Well, think about emotions. Just think about them for a minute. They are very interesting. They have highs and lows. The emotional process goes from a high, hope, and then a low, pain. So, and everything in between. So if you make a spontaneous decision, then you're not giving yourself time to go through what we call the emotional wave. We have an emotional wave. So basically the motto is there's no truth in the now. Truth reveals itself over time. So you need to take your time. Give it days, weeks, months if you have to. If you don't know, you don't know. As I say for myself, if I don't know, it's a no for now until I know. So who's next, Lynette or Ruth?
It's me, Lynette and Lynda. And next we have sacral authority. Some people pronounce it sacral. I have sacral authority. And the sacral, you can see there in the illustration on the left, is the red square in the body graph, located just above the root at the very bottom. And if your sacral center is defined without the solar plexus, then you have sacral authority. And the yes, no, or I don't know is what you listen to as your inner authority. The yes, and the no, the sacral voice. This voice comes from the gut without hesitation. And if there is a hesitation, then it's a no or I don't know for now. It's a gut response. Your sacral center is located about 3 fingers beneath your belly button. And it is a gut response. It is mechanical, like your heart beating or your blood flowing. The sacral responds. This motor responds to questions, yes or no questions, that come towards you from outside of you. The response bypasses your brain, and the mind is never the authority. And how I experience this is like an energy moving towards something. My sacral voice is heard and felt as soon as a question is asked about becoming involved in a process or activity. So those of you who have a defined sacral center, if you know this, I'm going to ask you a question. Would you like to have the answer to the mystery of life? Well, I would. Did anyone notice whether their energy moved towards that, up and towards it, if you felt a building up of energy in your body, or if there was a hesitation or a stopping of your energy moving forward? That's how my sacral response feels. And everyone is different. And it took me a while to get in touch, to reacquaint myself with my sacral voice, my sacral response. Generators as very young children, before they get their words, will answer with their sacral voice. If you watch children interacting with one another and you come up and ask them a question like, would you like ice cream? And they go, uh-huh. And you notice their energy rises. They use their sacral, yes. It's very clear what their inner authority is, what they want. No hesitation. In the same light, if you ask a little person, would you like to go to bed now? And their energy just sinks. And it's a no. No, they don't want to go to bed right now. So that's a little bit about sacral authority. There are about 32.9% of humanity that has the sacral authority. And let's move on to the next one, please. Next, we have splenic inner authority. The spleen is the brown triangle that points in towards the sacral center in your body graph. And if the spleen is defined without the sacral or without the solar plexus, then you have splenic authority. And then your authority is all about listening to the inner voice, your intuition, and acting on it, no matter the consequences. The splenic voice is soft, it's quiet, it whispers, and it never repeats. The spleen is about health and well-being. The spleen keeps you safe. And the whisper is here and it's gone, here and it's gone. It's a deep knowing or inner voice. Some people get goosebumps, some people's hair stands up on their arm or the back of their neck. Each person experiences this inner knowing in a very different way, but it's very quick. And I think the best example I ever heard was a story that Ra, the founder, messenger of the human design system, a story he told about his spleen. He lived on the Isle of Ibiza in a casita way off the beaten path, and daily he would get in his vehicle, drive up the dirt road to the main road, and he did this day in and day out. He never wore a seatbelt because the traffic was, almost non-existent. And this one day he goes in, jumps in his vehicle, and gets this sense, put on your seatbelt. So he buckled a seatbelt and away he went. And as he got nearer to the main road, he got in a small accident. It was nothing where he was really hurt. But if he hadn't buckled his seatbelt, if he hadn't listened to that inner voice, then it might have been a very different story. So splenic authority is found in approximately 10.82% of the population. Next slide, please. So we just reviewed the solar plexus, the sacral, and the spleen. These are the top 3 inner authorities in ranking, and 92.4% of the population has one of these 3 authorities. And often you'll see charts that have 1, 2, or all 3 of these defined. And then once in a while, you'll see a chart with none of these defined. And these are the lesser common authorities. And I'm going to turn it over to Lynette to take us further.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much. Sorry we can't see your sweet face, Ruth. So here we have, these are the more, I guess what you would call minor authorities. Ego, also called the heart. So the mechanic is, here it's going to be, see that little red triangle? Don't let the size fool you. It's got a real punch to it. And it's going to be defined in the body graph without the spleen, sacral, or solar plexus centers. So these are people where their inner authority is their will. The ego or the heart center is associated with willpower. It's a motor, but it's not a motor like the sacral where it can regenerate and go and keep going. It's got a real punch and it hits hard, and then it likes to rest. But the thing to remember here with the ego and the heart, whenever you hear this, it's pretty unmistakable, because a defined will is exactly that. It's not wishy-washy. It hits hard. So they need to be selfish and ask themselves, what's in it for me? What do I want? And again, as Lynda and Ruth were saying, inner authority is never, it's not going to be the mind, you guys. So it's a little bit tricky. You've got to experiment with it to really kind of nail it down. So there are two possible charts when you get as far as type ego authorities. You've got ego projected, and that will be the ego center to the G center, which is the diamond in the middle. Okay, so these people need to pay attention to I statements. I'm going to the store. I don't want to do that. I really want to do this. Okay, and the thing with this authority, it's so fun, is that you have to listen to what you say spontaneously. It's not about going to your mind and reading from a script and thinking, like for instance, I've got notes in front of me right now where we've prepared for this, right? But there's a certain point where I just have to be in myself and sort of jump off the cliff and trust what I'm going to say. And the thing to remember with ego projected authority is this is going to be a projector. And the way that, a projector operates is through recognition and invitation. That's the way their aura operates. So there needs to obviously be something inviting them first, someone inviting them, someone outside of their mind. Then they follow their inner authority and pay attention to what they say, or, I'm going to do this. So they're approximately 0.48%. And then you get to the second type, which would be a manifester, ego manifested authority. And that's where you would have the ego center defined to the throat, which is the square above the diamond. Now, that's what I am. And you can sort of hear it in my voice. Well, maybe not sort of. You probably can really hear it in my voice. It's got a punch to it. And when I first started experimenting with my authority, I was really, I remember I contacted Ra because he was on Facebook and he was really generous with me. And I'm like, you got to help me. I know that I'm not supposed to initiate. I know that I'm a manifestor and I'm here to initiate, but I'm not here to initiate with my mind. And he kept it really simple. He said, just listen to what you say spontaneously in the moment. Don't go up to your head and plan out what you're going to say and say it. It's not about that. You've just got to speak and see what comes out. And that's what happens. And in the beginning, especially, it just blew my mind, because the stuff that will fly out of my mouth is usually nothing to do with what I'm thinking. Sometimes my mind will be on board, but generally, that's not the case. And I have to trust that. And the thing that's so funny, you guys, is it's so easy to override it. I'll say something and then completely get back in my head, and Lynda will say, Lynette, you said you would never do that. And I'll be like, oh my gosh, you're right. I did say that. It's really easy to override it because we've spent our entire life listening to our mind. So, it takes some play, it takes some experimentation, but it's not wishy-washy. And another way that you can experiment with it is if there's something I'm really feeling like I really want to, I want to initiate this as a manifestor, I'll talk it out with somebody and kind of feel into my body while I'm talking. And if my voice is hitting like this, if it feels strong, then that's my will. But if I say something, I'm like, oh yeah, I'd really like to do that, and it sounds like that, that's not me. That's wishy-washy. Ego authority, not wishy-washy. So this is a really fun one to experiment with. And for ego manifested authority, you're going to get about 0.78%. So let's go on to the next one. Okay, this is a good one too. They're all good. The self-projected or G center authority. So that's the diamond in the middle. So it's defined without any of the other authority centers, the hierarchy we went through. And if that's defined as your authority, you're here to do what really makes you happy. Again, not the mind, but you, like maybe your higher self. And these people are really looking for what's right for them. And they have to ask themselves, will this make me happy? Will this give me satisfaction, success, And discussing the decision, this is a really good point, with other people so that they can hear what they are saying about it. And it's through the discussion that they will know. Okay, so here's an example. So you're a projector, you've got a self-projected authority, and you're thinking, gosh, I really want to sign up for this class, but I'm not really sure, and I've been invited and it feels really good to me, but I feel like I need to talk it out. So pick a few people, 2 or 3 is good if you can get that many. In aura is generally better than the telephone, but you can do the telephone too. And just talk it out. And just say, hey mom, what's going on? I'm really feeling like I just really want to take this class. And as you're saying it, feel into your body. You're going to be taking in conditioning from, the person that's sitting in front of you. And you can feel into it. And do that with 2 or 3 people. It's always going to be a different time and place, different conditioning that you're taking in, and you're going to start to get a sense of what's true for you. The thing to remember about this is you're really using the people as sounding boards. It doesn't matter what the people say, like, oh, that's a good idea, you should do that. It's not about them, and you can tell them that or not. It doesn't matter. It's about you getting in touch with that when you're speaking, and you're going to start to get a sense of what's true for you. And as a projector, remember too, it's really about sitting back in your power and waiting to be invited and recognized. A good invitation. Don't just jump at the first one. And then, experimenting with these authorities, they can be amazing. They're really fun. So let's see, what else have we got here? Yeah, recognition, listening to what you're saying spontaneously, feeling into the body, and just letting the mind do what it does. After you experiment with the authorities a few times and you go through some really what you would consider significant decisions, you start to see that you can trust it. And it's the best thing in the world to know that you have a place to go to make a decision. So good luck, you guys. So let's go on to the next one. I think Lynda is going to take us through environmental and lunar authority. Lynda, you ready?
I am.
Thanks.
Okay. So environmental. This is an interesting one. So this is where, when you see a body graph, you see the throat connected to the ajna, or the ajna connected to the head, or it could be all 3. So, but there's nothing connecting the throat to anything below that as far as channels go. So you don't have that connection. So you don't have access, basically, to a center that is going to be an inner authority. This is why we call this actually an outer authority, which we should say on this slide up here instead of inner. But it doesn't matter, because basically, if there's no centers defined below the throat, then they get their guidance from the environment and from discussing their potential decision. So this is going to be a projector in all cases. And so I can't even stress enough how important the environment is to this particular authority. Because environment, look at the design. You see all these open centers. Well, you're like a sponge. You take in, you absorb the environment around you. And if it's toxic, you're not going to feel well. Your life's not going to feel good. But if it's healthy and it feeds you, it makes you feel good. It's good, healthy environment. You're going to feel good. So when a decision is presented to you, so let's say I'm talking to this projector and I say, I really recognize how bright you are. And I'm amazed that you know so much about human design. And I was wondering if you ever thought about giving a lecture. I have a group of people that may want to hear a lecture from you about human design. Would you like to? So what did I do there? I recognized the projector. I gave them an invitation, and so now this projector just kind of looks at me and says, well, let me get back to you. That would be the correct answer. Let me get back to you. So then this person goes to their trusted friends and advisors and begins to discuss the invitation. And in their discussion of it, they're either going to feel excited, they're going to go, gosh, I got this wonderful invitation. I get to, talk about the thing that I really love. It's human design and a group of people, and this person's going to organize it for me, and I'm very excited about it. And then, advisors are giving her positive feedback, probably like, oh, that's very exciting for you. But the key is not to really listen to what the advisors say. The key is to listen to how you are discussing it. I remember doing a reading for a guy who had actually this very same design. And he was a young guy, and he was into music, and he was wondering if he should go to Chicago and play his music, or if he should go work for his father's real estate firm. And I said, well, you have to go and see what the environments feel like. He already knew what his father's business felt like, and so he took his trip, went to Chicago, got the vibe of it, came back. It was clear as a bell to him that music and Chicago were his place. And but the struggle was letting his father down. So you can imagine, what that was like. But he had to follow his authority. And the biggest decision, one of the biggest decisions he'll probably ever make in his entire life, was presented to him at a very young age. And he, using human design, he went to the path that was really correct for him. So again, if he had gone to his father's place to work, he probably would have died on the vine. It wouldn't have been the right environment. So these are sensitive people. If they allow themselves to feel the environment, they know when it's a correct environment, not a correct environment, and then they can take that. If they know the mechanics of this, that's a beautiful thing about human design. It teaches us the mechanics. If they understand the mechanics of it and they understand how they operate, they can begin to make decisions that are really healthy for them. So they need to listen to what they say, not what their advisors say, not what their friends say, but what they say and how they say it. So this how this particular authority works for a person. And now I'm trying to go to the next slide. Okay. This would be a reflector. You can see that all the centers are open. No color and no defined centers here. And so again, they must have trustworthy advisors to discuss their situation or potential decision while waiting a full cycle of the moon. Now, why do we wait a full cycle of the moon for this type? And they're more connected to the moon. The types that are defined, they're connected to the solar energy, the sun. And reflectors are lunar. They're connected to the moon. So they're very, very different. Not many people, you don't meet that many reflectors in your life. I've met a few. I've been fortunate enough to meet and know a few and learn from them what it's like for them to be a reflector. But they have, so the moon takes 28, 29 days to go a full cycle. And what happens as the moon makes its transit through our solar system, if you can imagine the wheel of the mandala that's around the body graph, as the moon makes its movement, it touches every gate in the mandala. It touches every gate within the body graph. So this is how, and this is a consistent pattern that the reflector can rely on. So all the other authorities can rely on the consistency of their solar plexus or their sacral or their spleen or their G or their heart, right? They all can rely on that consistency because anything that's defined within a design is consistent. It's always turned on, always. But when you look at this design, not the case. But they do have that beautiful moon that's traveling through the solar system, going around and touching on every single gate within the body graph in the same pattern every single month. And they eventually, as they're going through that process, they're talking to trusted people to hear what they say, not what the other says, but what they say as they go through their decision process. So if you have any reflectors in your life, or if you are a reflector, they need time. Never rush. You just sort of drop the question in the pool of the reflector and let the ripples sort of go out and let them sort of marinate as the moon has its cycle, and they can talk to their advisors, which could be family, friends, coworkers, whatever, and then they get clarity, and they can get clarity sooner. It's, it can happen when it happens, and it's really all about the experiment. So that's how a reflector goes through their process. Okay, now we're at the time when we can do some Q&A. So I'll be watching the board here to see if there are any questions. So you can put them in the chat panel or in the Q&A.
So Lynda, I see from Heidi.
Yes.
She has asked, how does it get decided? 4 or 5 inner authorities are colored in. Which one is the authority?
Well, if you remember the hierarchy, if you go back to that, maybe Lynette, you could flip us back to the slide that had the hierarchy. It was in the beginning-ish. There it is. One more. There we go. So here's how we know. How does it get decided 4 or 5 inner centers that are colored in? Which one is the authority? Like I said, if the solar plexus is colored in, it's always the authority. Even if it's colored in and all of these others are colored in, it's always the solar plexus. If the solar plexus is not colored in, but the sacral is, that's the authority. So if the sacral is colored in plus every other, a center, it's still sacral, and so on and so forth. So that's how we know. Got it. She's giving me a thumbs up. Okay.
And also we have from Julie K, ego authority. Is it most trustworthy when it's spontaneous?
That's for Lynette.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say yes, it is. It really is. And the trick is listening to it and hearing it. It's amazing how much we say that we don't listen to, and our minds quickly override it. I would say yes. But if there's something I'm struggling with and it feels like I really want to initiate this, I'm a manifester in the moment and I'm not sure, still using, talking it out can help, just to kind of sense into my body when I'm talking. And it's the craziest thing. If it's not on, my voice will go up a few octaves, kind of like this, and it'll start to sound kind of weak, and I'll be, hey, that's not me, So yeah, but spontaneous all the way. Yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions?
I see some Q&A. Let's see.
Okay, here we go.
Do you see that, Ruth?
I do. Let's see. Thank you so much for this seminar, from Mary Crute, I think. Question from a mental projector. Lynette said that reflectors rely on the consistency of the lunar cycle, just like the generators rely on the consistency of whatever they've got filled in. Do projectors have any consistency they can rely on? Is there such a thing as consistent environment?
Yeah. there is a consistency that they can rely on because they have definition. So whatever that definition is in their design. So for a mental projector like you, Mary, you can rely on that mental part, right? The throat connected to the ajna, the head, or the head connected to the ajna by itself without the throat, whatever the case may be. So what you're consistently, those centers are consistently defined. That's the mental process that's consistently defined. But you also have to balance it with what's going on in the environment. So you're always a projector. You're always a projector. You're always looking for, not looking for, don't take that the wrong way, but your antenna are up to recognize whether you are being recognized or whether you have been given an invitation. And once you have, then there might be a decision to make, and then you go into your process. So that's your consistent process. Anything else, Ruth?
Yes, we have an anonymous attendee asked, as an emotional decision maker, do you wait for every decision? Like, do I have coffee today? Or is it mostly for the bigger decisions? How does it work in a practical way for everyday decisions? This is a great question.
And let me tell you what I did, because I share this with my students often. When I first found out that I was emotionally defined, I thought it was horrible because I had lived my entire life being spontaneous with that open spleen. I was so conditioned to be spontaneous. Open spleen, open G, the only two open centers I have. So I was conditioned to do what everybody else wanted me to do, and I was conditioned to do it now. I had a really good friend that was a splenic projector, right? And she would listen, and I would just go, yeah, whatever you want to do. So to enter into the experiment in a very deliberate way, I stopped answering the door. I stopped answering the phone. I let the machine get it so I could hear what my friends wanted of me, and then I could process it through my emotional wave. I took a day, several days probably, where I only let my body tell me what it wanted to do. I would, walk by the kitchen with dirty dishes in the sink. Is my body going in there to do them, or is my mind telling me to do it? And I would just make a very, deliberate point to really study what my mind was saying versus what my body was saying. And I had to force myself. It's like sitting on my hands to wait through the emotional wave whenever a decision was presented to me. Now, for the everyday little things like getting a cup of coffee, I don't worry about that. I just go with where my sacral takes me. But as far as decisions, somebody comes and asks me something. I'm to be asked. I'm a generator. I'm a manifesting generator with solar plexus definition. So my aura works like we talked last time, like it's enveloping, so it pulls in. So I'm designed to be asked. So nobody's going to ask me if I want to, or sometimes people ask me if I want a cup of coffee, and I can go, I mean, that's, I don't have to wait through my wave. But sometimes I get stuck there, and I'll go, I don't know. Not right now. And then 5-10 minutes go by, and then all of a sudden, I would like that coffee now. So it's really just getting in touch with your body consciousness and how it works for you, and experiment with it. That's why it's called an experiment, because nobody can tell you how to do it. We can give you guidelines, we can give you signposts, and that's what we do when we talk about human design, but we can't tell you how to do it for you. You have to figure it out for yourself. But you understand the basics of the mechanics so that you can go out and experiment with it. So long answer.
Thank you, Lynda. And we have Muskan, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, is a projector and says, my authority is solar plexus. How do I work with the two together? And thank you for this webinar. So an emotional projector, how do those two work together is his question.
So you want to become aware of what it means to be invited and recognized. you know, you have to be seen. Projectors know what it's like not to be seen, to be invisible when they're in a room and nobody's seeing them, or to be talking to somebody and they're not asking you any questions about yourself. You're not being seen. You're not being recognized. But when you are recognized, when you feel it, Becky Markley said one time, you know, she was asked, what's it like to be recognized? And she said, well, I just want to get out and skip down the street. I'm just so excited that somebody finally saw me. So that's the first stage. You want to feel that recognition when somebody is inviting you. You have to have an invitation before it's a decision. You don't make decisions without an invitation, right? That's how it is for you. How it is for me, I'm asked, you are invited. So, and then you process it through your emotional wave. So in the moment, you might be higher than a kite and want to do it and say yes, but you might be selling yourself short. You maybe need to negotiate. You maybe need to collect more information. You maybe need to consider the price if it's something that's going to pay you. So you go through your emotional wave. You take your time. You ask who's recognizing you. You say, how much time can I take 3 or 4 days on this? And the person might say, take as long as you want. Or they might say, yeah, I kind of like to know by Saturday, you know? And so just go through your wave, and hopefully by Saturday, you're going to have clarity whether or not you want to do it. And I find that if initially I feel like it's a yes, but I'm not a projector, so then it's typically going to be a yes when I get to Saturday, but that's not always the case. I just actually had that happen to me recently when I said I would do something. And some time went by and I got clear that, oh, I can't do that. So I had to back out. And that's a drag. When you tell somebody yes and then you back out, that's no good. So just take your time, because the solar plexus wants to be a not self, you know, solar plexus. It wants to be impulsive. Solar plexus, the center in the 9-centered being, is not fully mature and developed in our evolutionary process yet. So it is like the 13-year-old boy or little girl or whatever that is impulsive. And so impulsively, it might get pissed off and quit the job, or it might be so excited about that, it jumps in and finds out that it wasn't really correct to jump in at that time, you know. So experiment with it.
And Lynda, can I ask a question of you?
Yes.
I think it's important for emotional authority beings to understand the difference between certainty and clarity.
Mm-hmm.
So you talked about getting clear. And I think that is an amazing distinction between being certain and clear when you have emotional authority. Can you expound on that for us?
Yeah. Immediately when you mentioned that, I thought of Ra and his description of the difference between clarity and certainty. The solar plexus is not a thing that is certain. It's just not. It's always moving. It's like water. I mean, do you hold water in one spot? You know, it's always moving. It's always changing. So you can you can come to a place of clarity, as much clarity as possible, but chances are you'll never be certain. So yeah, that's how I would answer that.
Thank you, Lynda.
Yeah.
Polly Ash asks, is there something more for mental projectors? Read their environment, and I'm guessing you're talking about environmental authority, Polly. She says mountains, shores, etc., to be taken into consideration.
As long as you get there through your strategy and authority, you know, be invited and then go and make sure it's correct for you. It's not a mental decision.
Yeah, I believe, Polly, you may be referring to some of the more advanced information.
I recognize that she is, but it's still the same answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Gloria asks, astrologically, the design and personality appear to be two complete entities. Is the design capable of self-conscious awareness, and conscious evolution. I have done compatibility reports on the interaction between the two, and these reports seem to be a pretty good report on the war within.
So let's see. Whoops.
I think, yeah.
That as well, so I can really take it in. Is the design capable of self-conscious awareness and conscious evolution? You know, my answer is no, not necessarily, but maybe on some level, but it's not conscious to us. So, you know, what's read in your design is the unconscious sort of automatic operation that's going on. And the black in the design is what you're aware of, what you're conscious of. You see it, which goes back to the ABCs of human design, which is the red is like being in a tunnel and you don't know until you come out of the tunnel that you were in the tunnel. And the black is being on the road, you know, without the tunnel, and you're aware of your environment and everything that's going on around you. So, but if you do look at the red and the black and the war between the two, it's a very interesting thing because we had a slide up where we had the red and the black and then the combined in the middle, the forced marriage. And that's really what it's like. I mean, it takes me back to Ra's lecture about the magnetic monopole and how it holds us together in the illusion of our separateness, and it holds the red and the black together. And that's why we cannot really be in control of our life through our mind. We have to be in control of our life through our surrender to our strategy and authority, because we're giving it over to the body consciousness so that the red and the black can work together, depending upon the definition, to make the decisions that keep us on the trajectory that we're here to have in life. That's the job of the magnetic monopole, is to hold those two together. So, yeah.
I'm skipping over to the chat panel for a moment. There's an interesting question from Heidi Grayson. Can you have one authority, like solar plexus, but have the voice being weak or strong or soft intuition as the secondary and tertiary authorities that show up less frequently?
Well, there's no such thing as secondary and tertiary authorities, but you have information coming to you from that defined spleen all the time. You're getting hits of intuition, you know, all the time. But that doesn't mean it's time to make a decision. So you have to experiment with that. So let's say a big job offer came. A big job offer came to you, and maybe you have to move to another country or something. You know, it's really big, and so you know your emotion. You know your authority is your solar plexus, and so you tell the person asking you. Your spleen might be screaming, yes, 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 you know, but you tell the person that you're talking to. This is where your mind becomes an ally. You know, thank you for the offer. That's really incredible. My first response is, you know, I'd love to do it, but I really need to process this. So let me have a few days or a week and I'll process it. And that just gives you time to really consider how this is going to change your life, what it's going to do. The other person's going to want you more, so they might even call you up in the middle of that and offer you more money. And all the while your spleen is saying, oh, yes, yes. But then maybe one day you talk to somebody, you interview with somebody, and your spleen goes, no, you know. So you're taking that information in and you're putting it into your emotional wave as you're processing, and just continue to process that emotional wave and see where it takes you.
Thank you, Lynda. And a similar question here, we have Alex Sue asking, he's a splenic projector. Is it possible that my intuition is wrong and second thought is right?
Who knows? I mean, only you would know. I would just experiment with your spleen and see if it ever steers you wrong. I mean, most people that I've talked to that have entered into the experiment would answer this no. So, and then how can you tell, right? Even if we have a bad experience, it might be the correct experience. But as a splenic projector, your intuition is your body consciousness talking to you. And I don't know anybody in human design that's been involved in their experiment that says, oh, my spleen's not right. I'm not going to listen to that anymore. So,
thank you, Lynda. Let's see, we have Joshua McAllister is a generator with sacral authority. I want to please and am very oriented towards helping others. Is there a way for me to know if a role as a recruit or an officer in the Navy is a healthy choice for me? I've cleared most of my negative thoughts about it and am curious with respect to my inner authority if it's right.
Well, if you're responding to doing it, if you're going, aha, whenever you're asked and your energy wants to do it and you're moving toward it and you're going, aha, then there's your answer.
That's how it works for me. If I say, and I'm very excited about doing something, and then go up to my mind, start weighing the options, I find myself off base. So Keys Verberg says, waiting for a complete lunar cycle can be very impractical sometimes. What about deadlines? Good
question, and that's why when I was talking about that, sometimes you can't. Do the best you can. And for the reflectors that I've known and interacted with have been able to find a way to make that work for them. So I would just experiment with it and find what works for you. But it's a very good question. Same with emotional definition. You know, somebody tells me, I got to know by tomorrow, and like a deer caught in the headlight. So then sometimes I just have to say no. But sometimes in a job that's just not practical. We've got a boss that says, I need that by tomorrow. So you just do the best that you can.
Thank you, Lynda. Let's see, Julie K. Authority is used to make decisions. Does it have other uses?
Gosh, I know for me, being solar plexus defined, that my emotional system has all kinds of uses. Yeah, sure.
Let's see, this is a rather long question from Rebecca Barker. I'm a 4/6 generator with emotional authority and living in the wrong place. I have an opportunity to move back to the East Coast, which I've been yearning to do for years, but will have to find a new way to create income. I don't want to feel dependent. Is it okay to make the move since living in the correct place is paramount for a 6th line, and take heart that things will fall into place?
I would have somebody that you trust ask you that question and see what your sacral says. And then, ask it again a few days later, ask it again a few days later to see if you're emotional, if you feel the same way emotionally about it. I rather than asking me, you should be the one to be asked.
Thank you, Lynda. Now we have Anonymous asking, do all defined centers have their own authority, which speaks while going through the decision-making process?
No. Mm-mm.
And Randall asks, is there a difference in a defined center being defined by both a red and black gate rather than an all black or all red?
Yes. there is part of that. So what happens when you've got a channel that's half red and half black is that you're going to be consciously aware of the black part, but not the red part. And the red part is a surprise. So, yeah.
Great. And I think that is everything. Oh, wait a minute. Here we go. From Wyandan, how should I navigate having a personality crystal that is a splenic projector, but my complete chart is an emotional manifester?
By informing, because you are a manifester. And so don't confuse the two, because you're not one or the other. You are the quantum of the two. So whatever the quantum of the two brings you to, that is what you look at. So as an emotional manifester, you inform, you wait through your emotional wave, and you inform, and you wait through your emotional wave.
Thank you, Lynda. And Mary says, I don't know the exact time of birth. Can I still get a reading?
I tell people that have this situation to get a chart rectification. You can look for an astrologer that does rectification. Sometimes Vedic astrologers, they're very good at pinpointing times of birth. What they do is they ask you about events in your life, and they sort of work backwards to narrow down the time. So if you generally have a time when you might have been born, it's better, and then they can work to get you a more accurate time.
Perfect. Thank you, Lynda.
You're welcome.
I think that's everybody.
Okay. Well, this was fun. I hope everybody learned something and you enjoyed being here.
It was super fun. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Thank you all.
And if we can just review next steps for everyone.
Okay.
Oh, that's right. We need to go forward.
Whoops. Let's try that again. All righty. Just get rid of this thing right here so I can see.
Hello, Lynette.
Okay, sorry.
Our next webinar in April will be on the centers, the 9 centers. And we're almost there.
We're almost there.
There we go.
There we go.
So if you want to stay in the conversation and learn more, we do classes all the time. You can join our mailing list and you're informed of a lot of different things that are going on. Our next webinar, we're going to talk about centers, which is a pretty big topic. So hopefully you'll all come back for that. You can go to the website, the IHDSschool.com website, and you can get a free human design chart. You can get a personal report. We'll send out a coupon code, by the way, for a personal report. We'll send out a follow-up email, so you'll have all this information in an email. You can schedule a reading with a professional. Ruth and Lynette do readings, either one of them. They're both excellent. You can come to a Living Your Design workshop. You know, Carol Zimmerman's running them all the time at the IHDS, and come learn more about human design. Contact us. If you just have general questions, just email office@ihdschool.com. That's Lynette's email, and she's very good, very quick. And so, yes, and so Ruth and Lynette are going to put together a follow-up email and send out a bunch of information so that you can have, you know, if you want to know more, there's many ways to do that. So.
And if I can jump in, Rebecca asks about the April date. And in our follow-up email that you'll receive in the next few days, there will be a link to register and all of the information on the next webinar. And Robin asks, is there a recording available for the first webinar? She missed it.
Oh, we can include the link for the first webinar in the email that goes out following this.
Yeah.
So,
perfect.
You betcha. Thanks for asking about that. That's a good question.
Yes. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. We really enjoyed spending time with you and such great questions.
Yeah.
Thank you for participating.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye for now.